President Trump signed an executive order today implementing new reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trading partners. He said the days of America being, quote, ripped off on trade were over. According to the president, the new tariffs will cause a big financial turnaround. Critics of the move, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, said the tariffs will cause a recession. Joining us now to discuss these latest developments is Fergus Hodson, Director of Econ Americas and author of the books The Latin America Red Pill and Financial Sovereignty for Canadians. We're also joined by George Carrillo, CEO of the Hispanic Construction Council and former Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon. Thank you both so much for being here. Now, Fergus, I want to start with you. What's your reaction to these tariffs announced by Trump today? The minimum baseline of 10% on all countries, and then some like China, Taiwan, and the EU seeing much higher ones.
Great, Tiffany. Thanks for having me. I am concerned about this because I'm not sure that Trump has a clear objective here, and there could be retaliation. So we all know tariffs are taxes. They will be a burden on U.S. consumers and producers. So someone has to pay the bill. Also, maybe there are objectives here, but I'm not sure whether they will be achieved or not, whether other countries will back down or actually escalate. I do not want to see escalation, and that would be the worst outcome.
Now, the president today pushing back on those criticisms, saying, anyone that opposes it should check out his first term when he also implemented tariffs and the economy was fine. George, on that note, though, President Trump is calling this Liberation Day for America. Talk to us about the role tariffs have played in U.S. history, and do you have any concerns about today's tariffs?
Sure. Thanks for having me back on the show. When it comes to tariffs have been around for a very long time. Started off back in 1789. Tariffs help fund the government. But if we learn from our mistakes, the Great Depression, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, it was a disaster. It raised taxes on imports. It greatly affected us during the Great Depression. And today what's concerning is what President Trump said. He was saying that we should have kept our pedal to the metal when it comes to tariffs during the Great Depression. We would have gotten out of it a lot quicker. And I absolutely totally disagree with that. I think that it's a very disconnect for the president to understand the implications of tariffs and that these policies can backfire, and they have backfired on us already. And so right now, I'm really concerned with what is going to be the next steps, especially with our trading partners, our neighboring partners that we have great relationships with, is how would they retaliate now from these imposed tariffs?
And George, staying with you, I want to expand on that a bit. So, what's the likelihood of these retaliatory tariffs we could see from countries in response? Could that enhance the, say, economic malaise in our own country?
Absolutely. I firmly believe, and I think a lot of other economists will agree with me, that we're headed towards a recession by the end of this year. And this is only going to increase those chances. Tariffs, we know that they slow economic growth. And then on top of that, retaliatory tariffs is definitely going to hurt American goods going to foreign countries and will contribute to more job losses here in the United States as our foreign partners are purchasing less goods from American businesses.
And Fergus, in terms of today's tariff announcements, there were 2 exemptions for our neighbors to the south and north, Canada and Mexico, both left out of the 10% baseline tariffs. Of course, there's still the original 25% levied earlier. What do you make of those exemptions? Could we see a new USMCA trade deal negotiated soon?
I'm not optimistic about that. My concern, well, first, Canada is in the middle of an election right now, so we don't know who will win that. But either candidate is right now escalating or wants to escalate with the United States, and it would be a difficult position to be in to negotiate a trade agreement when they believe basically the United States has abandoned the previous one. Further, the Mexicans will be looking to other trading partners and will be they want to basically deleverage themselves or have less exposure to the United States right now.
And George, in terms of what to expect from other countries, considering that Trump announcing that these tariffs aren't full reciprocal tariffs, how should we expect other countries to respond?
Well, I think the president wasn't very clear on these reciprocal tariffs because let's use Vietnam as an example. He says we're going to only do half of what they do. The reality is that Vietnam doesn't tariff all American goods at 90%. That's typically around motorcycles because that's the main source of their transportation. So they protect that there for their country. But when we look at other costs of goods like apparel and footwear, we're looking at about 13%. When it comes to fishery, it's at 0%. Meat and poultry, which we provide a lot to Vietnam, is between 2.5% to 4%. And so by the president saying that it's only going to be half, but that's not half on all goods. I don't think the president is being truthful in all of his statements that he's making here. And I think that, on the global economy, when we look at this, our foreign countries that we partner with, they're not stupid. They know what Trump is doing. So he may make it sound like it's a good thing that we're only doing tariffs at half the rate. But let's really look at the real numbers here. It's not a fair trade negotiation. It's only going to create a trade war. And what I'm worried about is other countries partnering together to cut the United States out.
That's a very interesting point, because Fergus, zooming out a bit here, what do you see as the broader goal? We do see, say, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, forming their own counter to the SWIFT financial system. Could these tariffs be a way to, say, build a trade bloc of democratic allies versus, say, more adversarial ones like China?
Exactly. So I share the concerns of your other guest here about retaliation, escalation, high costs, all sorts of allocation problems in terms of manipulating the economy. However, there are, in my opinion, underlying goals here to confront the Chinese presence in the Americas, or basically in the most lucrative markets of the world. And so Trump is using these tariffs as, in my view, a bargaining chip. And my hope is that they will just be a short-term measure and not a permanent fixture. If they were to be a long-term fixture, there would have to be some other tax cuts to offset this burden.
Francis Hodson, George Carrillo, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.